after estimation, we will see about the project risk. But before going into detail how to handle project risk and how to identify first of all the project risk, first I want you to just analyze this question and write down points. How do you handle risk in your projects? Have you ever identified the high priority risk? And the risk priority keeps on changing, because for example currently you will have certain high priority risk, but that could change over the time if you have mitigated the risk. So for example, I can take two examples here. One is, if you have a two-member team, then definitely the risk is that there could be high dependency on the resources, because only two people are there, you don't have backup resources to handle the task. So then what are the mitigation plans? One is that you could ask them to document all the business core logics, the functionalities. That is one part of it. The second part could be that you talk to your senior management and ask your client for billability, and also you form a backup resource. So that is one part. And another example of risk could be that as a project manager, you're new to the project and you're forming a team that is also new. Now, since the project is new, the customer is new, you will take some time to develop the relationship with the customer. So how you have planned, because it could be in some cases risk. I'm not saying risk, but it will take some time. But for the years, if you have spent time in the project for 1 year, but you don't have a good relationship with the client, then it could be a risk due to a number of reasons. Practically, it can happen the client is not satisfied with the quality of the deliverables, the products that we are delivering to them. So in practical scenarios, there could be a number of situations. So I want you to analyze how you have note down your risk in your project and what are your mitigation plan. And another thing could be that certain times a customer, from the customer stakeholders point of view, like certain times your project is not priority for them, they don't have time for your project. That could also be a risk, because if you don't follow the process of sign off, then the client suddenly turns up at the deliverable stage and they say, no, this is not the product I'm expecting. Then this is a high risk. So every stage have a different level of risk, and there is a way to mitigate those risks. And as a project manager, it is important to analyze with your team leads, with your core resources, because certain times you have experienced people in your team, so you can sit with them so that they can also come up with mitigation plan. So it's very important to know how to handle risk in your projects. So when we say about project risk, so what are the project risk? And when we consider the project risk, so there are certain times, like we have told that in estimation you add contingency. So that's why you identify risk and certain amount of time in your estimation. So risk management is considered a part of the planning process, because when you are planning at the initial stages, there are a lot of issues. When you are new to the project, when the project is developed from the scratch, then there are enormous number of risks. It could be people risk. It can happen that you are not getting the correct skilled resources for the project. So that could be one of the risks. And second is, there could be a risk that you are skipping the deadline. You cannot complete the project with the mentioned deadline from the customer because you don't have resources. Or there could be a risk of, first of all, certain types of the project have a risk that they don't have a clear requirements. So first of all, you need to identify the potential risk. It is risk is are no more than elements that might go wrong in your project. They could be internal or there could be external risk. So what you do for external risk? There could be certain risks which are not in your hand. For example, you are working on a product, but the core product has been developed by some other team which is not under your control and sitting somewhere else. So in those cases, the identified risk, it has to be transferred to that department, or it has to be handled through your higher management, because you don't have control on those type of risk. And the external risk could be from the customers also, as I mentioned that the requirements are delayed, the client don't have time to sign off, I have seen in a number of cases in my project, IT projects, certain times we have as a team delivered the project and the contract is a fixed bid. We are not getting paid for the idle time the team is sitting. So on those cases, and if you are following an iterative SDLC method, then what happens is the team sit idle unless and until the client says go ahead, and then you start working on the another set of requirements, because certain times the client gives a very delayed sign off and they don't come up with a new requirement. So these are potential risks, because if you're not generating any money to the project, definitely your senior management will ask why so many resources are idle. So all these things are risks to a project. So what are the stages of the risk management plan? The process is, first you identify the potential risk, then you have to rate them by likelihood and severity and choose which risk to plan for, because there could be risks which are very severe. Some application has gone live and there could be some defects which needs to be fixed immediately, so they are very very severe issues. Or there could be a core team member who is leaving and the entire component deliverable is there dependent on him or her, and it can happen that we need to deliver it. Certain cases we need to communicate it to the stakeholders, so certain time there could be some ad hoc situation comes up, and we can skip the deadline of the project. So these are important, that you need to choose the risk which has to be mitigated and make plans for dealing with those risks. The process you use to complete the initial identification step is entirely up to you. So we need to do mitigation plans. But what I am saying is, as a project manager, when the project starts, because each stage the risk needs to be identified on the initiation stage and the planning stage and the execution stage, and each time the risk priority and severity they keep on changing. So and certain times you need to identify the common risk also, and then you need to rate each risk, first on the likelihood of its occurrences and then on its severity, how frequently it can occur, those risks that you need to point out. The simply you have to rate it from the 5 point scale, or even a high, medium, low selection to rate the risk on your list. So again, this template varies according to company. So whatever the template you are following, you need to rate the risk. So for example, the risk could be like, for a two team member project, the risk of leaving one resource, what are the likelihoods? That's important to rate, and accordingly the severity need to be mentioned. So when the risk is pretty severe, for example, if we are talking about that the new technology has to be learned by the team, and the team resources they don't have any idea of the new technology, so we need to define the severity high, because your team does not know the technology and the client has given you a deadline. So in these cases you need to come up with a mitigation plan wherein you can ask your senior resources or senior technical architects to come in, help your team and mentor your team in the new technology. This is how you mitigate the risk. The aim of rating the risk is to allow you to decide which one you are going to plan for. So there is no hard and fast rules for this. The risk you choose to plan will depend on your own organization's culture and your own attitude to risk. Typically, though, you wouldn't plan for risks that are extremely unlikely to occur, but it is better to keep a mitigation plan ready. So, when we call about mitigation plan, it all again depends on how to focus on the current one. For example, your core team member is leaving. Then definitely the mitigation plan should be immediate, that you need to follow a succession plan. First of all, you need to find out a resource who will be replacement for the resource who is leaving, and then you need to have a knowledge transfer sessions. You need to plan the knowledge transfer sessions, and then you need to transfer all the knowledge from the core resource to the new resource. So sometimes there could be a mitigation plan regarding the technology. For example, the server need upgradation. All these, the production server needs upgradation. All these things, the mitigation plan, sometimes we think as a project manager, we think that it is not needed, we can just postpone this course of action. But it is very important, the expert project manager, they always rely on their judgment. So sometimes whenever the team is sitting idle, you always get a sometimes a buffer time in certain projects where the client has not he has not signed off the earlier products. Then in those idle time you can work out on these issues, and you can just close off the risk. So it's very important that not to ignore small issues or small risk which we consider that currently the likelihood is very it cannot happen, but it is important to deal with those and come up with mitigation plan. Risk management is very critical for all the projects, and I'm sure that all of us face some or the other risk. Certain projects the resources risk are high, in certain projects the technology is so complex and the framework is so complex that the technology part is very complex, so that could be one of the risks. In certain projects the team dynamics can be an issue that we will see later, that how a team building can be handled by a project manager. Because yes, planning is necessary, the technical things handling is necessary, the designing and everything is necessary, but at the end we are handling people. So in certain case, trust me, like I have faced those kind of issues where the team members does not gel with each other, there's always a conflict. And yeah, sometimes the conflicts are good, but if it is happening regularly, then as a project manager, to manage the people, it's one of the tasks. So we need to see why they are not doing it sometimes, and these conflicts that can impact the productivity of the team. So this could be one of the risks. So whether it is a people issue or a technical issue or it could be some project specific project issues, as a project manager we need to clearly plan out, prioritize the risk, and according to severity we need to handle the risk and come up with the mitigation plan and close the risk. Till now we have seen that when we say it as a effective project management, then there are a lot of factors involved, and even small things we think that these are small things, but it has a huge effect practically. So now we will see what are the certain parameters in that. I will use a laser pointer. The first is good administration. Why I am saying administration? Because nowadays the requirement for the project management skill is that we can't do anything. We have to coordinate, we have to make plans, but the major part in many companies, the major part goes as a administration, documentation, getting things done, and also arranging that in the configuration management documentation. So it needs a good administration part, like delegating and all those things. So when we come in practical, when we say that good administration, it is more onto a delegation part as a manager of the team. Because I have seen many managers, they fail because they fail to delegate. It is the truth, because certain times we think we can do it better, but all of the things we can do it better, and certain project manager, they don't know to delegate. They just keep all the work to themselves, delegate a little to the team. What happens as a result is that the project fails, because at the end it is very important to delegate the task very efficiently. And we have to see, because at the end when we are building a team, then what are the behavioral style of the team? They like technical tasks. Certain behavioral people, they are very energetic and they like to have certain kind of relationship with the customer. They like front ending jobs where, like customer representative, and they want to talk to the client and maintain the relationship. So each person is different. At the end we are handling team, and every person is different, and we need to know how to analyze their behavioral style, that we will see in detail, and how to build a team so that there are no conflicts and we can run. Because already you have client pressures in software projects, the changes are so dynamic that you need to deal with it day to day. So apart from that, if the team is not efficient, if the teamwork is not there in the team, then the project will definitely fail. So good administration is one of the quality. Then prioritization and lean management. Why prioritization? I can give you an example that when I was handling a project, the team was so big. It was a large team consisting of 50 team members. Sometimes it is due to the domain. It was an insurance domain. It was very dynamic and also mission critical because huge finances were involved in it. It's about an application. If something goes wrong, then client could lose millions of dollars. So that was the so in those projects where the prioritization is very important, the project manager or the project leader should know which issues to be fixed. And even though you have 50 team members, trust me, in those kind of project, because huge project, they we feel that the resources are less. So in those kind of project, it's very important whenever the client comes with an issue, and yeah, certain issues you need to handle immediately because they can break your system. That is in IT scenario, or in any scenario, like if it is a different domain, there are certain issues. If you don't handle it now, the project will be closed. So those kind of high critically alert issues are there. So the prioritization is very important. And here comes the expert judgment and the decision making as far as the project manager is concerned. So prioritization. And what is lean management? If you would have seen in many books, the lean management means it is always customer focused. At the end, your project management, all the certification or whatever the learnings you are taking, they are useless unless and until you have a very good relationship with your customer, because day to the billing comes from the customer, and nowadays customer is the king. So in any company, if you see, they have lots of big companies and who are very successful in their business. If you see, they have a high customer focus. So it the lean management definitely concentrates on the customer and what and all is not needed, because day to day I have seen as a project manager, as a project, we will be some doing some routine tasks which are not at all needed, which are redundant. So lean management means we need to remove those tasks. We need to identify those tasks which kills the productivity of the team. It is redundant and it kills the productivity of the team and it is not required. Trust me, every time and then it keeps on changing, because prioritization and lean management is something that is we need to keep focus, because it keeps on changing. Because today a particular task could be very efficient or it could be very useful for the project. Tomorrow it can be the priority of the task could be very low. So it keeps on changing due to the dynamics of the project, due to n number of reasons, because somebody from your client management side, they would have changed, or they would have got promotion and you have to deal with a different customer. And trust me, customer to customer in the same organization, they have different focuses and different strategies in their mind. So definitely prioritization, it is a number one area. It's a prioritization is something which every project manager should work. It is whether planning, it is whether you're fixing the issues, or when you're delegating the task. It's very important. And when you're talking to the customer, especially in IT project, support project, customer comes with n number of issues and says this is priority, because sometimes they are not aware of, sometimes they want to get things done in a fast manner. And but as a vendor project management, it is your duty to check those issue lists and whether it is feasible in those time limit, and you ask client to mark the priority. If the client is not able to tell it, then it's better to have a meeting with the business users. So as per the business users, they know what is the requirement of the business currently, so they prioritize the task. Then comes effective delegation and administration. Definitely it is a part of monitoring and controlling. When it comes to execution, there are lots of yes, we can plan, yes, we can definitely estimate with accuracy, and we can also have a very risk management plan in place, whatever the case might be. But if you have not formed a team right, if you have not delegated the work properly, then the project is going to fail. And it is, trust me, it is very easy. Some project managers might be thinking it is very easy. You just need to build a WBS and then assign the task. It in real time project, in large project especially, it in complex kind of situation, it does not work. Why? Because in complex situations, client comes with different changes. For example, if you see in a project, in an IT web application development, if there is an interface, then client with come number of 100 changes in the interfaces, so it keeps on changing. So delegation means you need to assign tasks to the expert. For example, I will assign the interface design to the person who is really good in creativity, who has that skill. But in many a cases, in practical scenario, we don't get that kind of resources in our team. Then what to do? Then definitely there are certain things which you need to understand. Maybe certain team members would like to go in graphic designing, they want to make a career in graphic designing. You have to connect with the people, with your team, and assign, delegate the job accordingly, so that they are also motivated, productivity of the team is high. Then definitely effectiveness is the foundation of success. All said and done, if communication of the project manager is not effective, overall plan, whenever if there is a meeting also, it's not effective. I have seen many project managers, even I have done it in the initial stage of my career, like as a project manager. I have taken team meetings in hours, and at the end, there were no output from those meetings. Even with the customer, we used to talk about the issues, and so many issues, meetings and all take so much of long hour, but it didn't have an agenda, and they just, it closes off with specific output. So as a project manager, it's very important when we are conducting meeting with senior managers, because they are the one who sanctions your budget, project budgets, and they are the one who listens to your concerns and get more resources if you need for a project, and you need to alert them whenever there is a red situation in the project. So all these things can happen when a proper agenda and proper presentation of your whole project, like the scorecard, and also the issues in a proper format, it is presented to the senior management or the stakeholders, they will understand. So effectiveness is the foundation of the project success. Let's move on to the next topic, which is representation of the plan. So how you have made a plan, you have made estimates, but how you will represent it, that also matters a lot, because according to the representation, maybe I'm repeating this, and in each domain it is totally different. In each domain, it happens that like whether you are in manufacturing or real estate, the clients sometimes they are not functional, and also they do not understand the technicalities of the project. Then this representation of the plan plays a very important role, because for the project, certain project, they have a very long duration. So till the final outcome is produced, the client has to wait. So in those cases, the representation of the project plays an important role, because many a times, and it has happened to me in one of the project, if I go on leave, so certain times the client comes with a with an escalation that your team was not communicating to us, the representation of the plan goes wrong, and client misunderstands certain things, they also have concerns. So the representation of the plan, it should be very proper to the customers and the stakeholders. So with all the work we have done, like estimation and planning, now time is to represent the plan in well formatted way. We need to understand schedule is not the plan. If you go to the PMP certification books, PM book, it's PM project management plan constitutes schedule also and other things also, which is a huge template, and it is organization and project specific. So the schedule represents a group of timings that you are going to, that you have planned for your project. The total project plan comprises literally everything you have done in the project's planning phase. So when we say that, what are the, when we are representing a plan, what are the key items? What are the key aspects? So the first one is your deliverables and the milestones. the items you are actually going to deliver broken down into logical, manageable chunks that we have already spoken about. Then comes the schedule, the goals that will be achieved on given timings based on the estimate you have compiled. Because I am again reiterating the fact that these are the estimates which are approved by the client, and definitely it will be a baseline. These things, so there are various version of the plan. So as I told, if you are working in a very large project, if you are working in a huge project, then the first step is you will have a baseline. Then it keeps on changing, because trust me, it is not practically possible if you're working on a new development project, and it is not practically possible that you can just give the customer in one shot one plan and the team will stick to it and it will be as planned, the execution will also go. It never happens. So the client also keep on changes the requirement, and sometimes it is our understanding also changes. We might would have thought that task A will take 10 days, but it could be different. So it is always there will be a scope of re-estimation. So that's why in certain terminologies like CMMI and certain methodologies, it is termed as baseline, and the version keeps on changing. Then comes the risk management plan. And risk management plan is the risk you have anticipated that we have seen, and the step you will take to mitigate them if they materialize. And with this, there is one extra item which is about the assumptions and constraints, the circumstances or factors you have assumed to be true and that you have identified as limitations, combined to explicitly state the framework or context you are operating within. I can give you an example of assumption that when we are developing an application, for example, we are developing a website. So certain times the content like newsletter or press releases, the client says they will give you. So these are certain kind of, it's a simple assumption. And there could be another assumption that when I am developing our team is developing an ERP system, then certain times since we are new to the system and it will take years to understand the system which is already running for 20 years, we are going to upgrade it. It is better to get the knowledge from the customer itself who knows it very well. So in those cases, it is assumed that the knowledge will be transferred, or we will be using certain existing business logic. So these things are the assumptions in a particular project. So when we represent a plan, there are certain items which come from the initiation. And depending on the project, it may well be sensible to reiterate the reasons why you are undertaking the project, because it could be from the contract, like what is the purpose of the project. That's very important. That is called as the project goal. At the end, what this project should achieve. For example, if it is a website, then it could be that it should achieve, or if it is a digital marketing project, then it should be like, if it is a website, okay, we will go back to that example of website, that if it is a website, then what the client's goal will be, definitely to that more and more people come and visit their website. If it is a startup company, they want to build an online presence, they want to increase their brand visibility. So for those clients, it could be having more hit from the users, internet users. So that all these things are very important to note down in the plan, because unless and until as a project manager we are sure about the goal, we won't be able to achieve that. And also when we say about certain assumptions and constraint, so when we say about assumption and constraint, I want to detail out one thing, that assumptions and constraints can be different for different projects, and usually project managers, they forget to mention that. But it is very critical to the project, because sometimes the project manager, they don't run the project for years. So certain times the new project manager comes in and they handle the project. So they should, if it is documented somewhere, it is easier to handle the project, that what are the assumptions and constraints of this project, why this project was built. So these details helps the new project manager to get in to execute the project. So because many a times it's not practical, right? Like you have got the project and you will be there till the end. It's not possible if it is running for years. So these are the reasons. So now we have seen how to represent a plan very effectively so that it is easily understood by the customer, it is easily understood by the team leaders and the team. We have seen in detail about the risk management plan and how to represent a plan. Now we will see in detail about the WBS, the work breakdown structure. A work breakdown structure is a representation of the scope of the project. So I'm sure all of us know what is a work breakdown structure, and these things, the template of the work breakdown structure, it depends upon the company to company. If it is a small project, you won't go in detail. We will use a different template of WBS. And if it is a huge project, what processes you are following, it all depends on that. So it comprises a tree structure that hierarchically represents the project and its component deliverables. A WBS project, it should include 100% of the scope because it helps you for tracking. And the deliverables, literally everything has to be, whenever there is written in the WBS, it has to be delivered to the client. It is shared with the customers. To construct a WBS, start with the overall project and break into component deliverables. Then break each deliverables into component part. For example, if it is a requirement gathering stage, you can break down into what are the outputs deliverable. The end product of the requirement gathering will be the requirement document. Likewise, you should keep breaking that parts down into smaller levels of detail until the pieces are both achievable and manageable. And my personal rule of thumb for this task is that the smallest node should comprise deliverables that won't take longer than 2 or 3 days to achieve, because in that way it is very easy to track. And again, a rule for large and complex projects is, whenever you talk about the WBS, because your large project will have very small teams, it can be broken down into small team. One team may be working in some component development, the other team in some other testing team, it could be a testing team. So it's better to have WBS ready for large. You can't have a WBS for 4 to 5 months and 6 months down the lane. So it's better to have WBS for 1 month. So that's how it should be. Equally, you don't want to plan milestone that takes mere hours to complete. For example, 2 hours, 3 hours, that we can't include in the WBS. It will be difficult to manage. And also it will affect your personal productivity as a project manager or as a team lead to track the things hourly basis. A WBS can be represented in number of ways. So one could be through PowerPoint, one could be through Visio. So it also depends upon the company to company. Some company, they have project management softwares. They would have purchased management software, and they tailor according to the company's need. The project managers can start from planning to till the tracking can be done with a singular project management tool. So when we talk about choose software that you are comfortable with, that and that you should choose the software. And but in some companies, they give the convenience to you. We can detail out the WBS contents in an Excel. So or using Microsoft Project. It also depends on your comfort level, which tool you're comfortable with, and that allows you to draw boxes and arrows quickly, or offers inherent tools for creating hierarchical diagrams. Once you have become used to drawing WBS diagrams, you may find that you can just as easily plot them on paper and turn them into deliverables in the normal text. So I would highly recommend you to at least start with a hierarchy. So it is a tree-like structure, and I'm sure all of you will be using it. So it is just a brush up sessions for the project management. It's on the basic level of project management. Then comes Gantt chart. A Gantt chart is the diagram most people think of what they think of the words project plan. So mostly it is used by all the companies and by most of the project managers. Traditionally, it lists the task involved in the project on the left hand side, with bars representing each task duration overlaid on a calendar to the right. As we know that the things are changing, so nowadays the Gantt chart is available in the Microsoft project software, and it can be easily used. Here you can clearly see the dependencies in Microsoft project software, and also When we talk about the Gantt chart, then it will be easy to depict in using software tools like Microsoft Project, because you can put various it allows you to put various buffers, so many things you can use, and various view also it provides you, and it is easy to communicate those charts to the customer. It is easy to communicate the project schedule through these Gantt chart to the customer. So it is very visible and it is very easy to use. So here I'm assuming that some of the tasks won't be concurrent. So then the Gantt chart looks very proper. But there are certain tasks which are very concurrent and parallel. Then you have to figure it out how to represent those. So traditional project management techniques would have you assign each deliverables to the team member who will be working on it, then perform what's called resource leveling. This is the process by which you identified that some people in your team have a daily workload of 200%, whereas others are operating at 20% of capacity. And this is the idea. Once you have identified these discrepancies, you can reallocate the task. Because whenever we do a Gantt chart, whenever we do a scheduling, it happens mostly that and that too in large teams, some of the resources are overloaded, some are not having work. So resource leveling is one part that Microsoft project software can easily help. The reality with modern knowledge work, however, is that specific skills are usually required for particular tasks. Reallocating coding work to your design specialist isn't very likely to speed up the project, but perhaps more realistically, bringing someone into the team for 2 weeks when there is intensive coding to be done may also slow the project down rather than speed it up. I have seen in practical situations where clients come to me and say that we want this project to be delivered within 1 week, 2 weeks, and you can just speed up the work by putting more resources. Usually, this is not a good idea, because just putting more resources does not guarantee the work to be delivered very quickly, because the new members take a lot of time. And second is, whenever there is a lot of people in the project, then it's very, as the 80-20 principle goes on. So that is very difficult to allocate the work, and because when they are new to the project, they will take some time for them to be productive. So all these things has to be taken into consideration. So usually a preferred approach to resource allocation and leveling is to manage these functions on short term rolling basis within the team. Team members can often figure out a smarter ways of helping each other. Then you can predict weeks ahead time on your own. That's why the agile methodologies, if you have handled agile projects, they have iteration basis, and the estimates are based on that, because it current demand of the customers of changing requirements frequently, and when it happens, it's always better. I have seen like the client comes to me and yes, we need to plan for 1 year, because they need that planning for budgeting purposes from their side. But it is always better to tell the customer that there are chances of re-estimation, and this could be a higher level of estimation only. And because at the end, due to the changes, it's better to plan and create all these things on a short term basis. Obviously, if the initial plan proves that you need an extra programmer, designer, or skilled resources, you can expand team. And it is my personal experience. For example, when again I take the redesigning the framework example, where I have to design the entire framework in the new technology for an application, then initially whatever my estimates, my WBS I have created, it has to be taken step by step. I'll take a simple transaction and master screen. For example, for the financial module, I can take one master screen, I can implement in the new framework and give the estimates, give the WBS to the client, and then I start expanding once I have a confidence in the team that yes, they can achieve it, because one prototype, one functional module is already ready. So this is how you should go about it. I have seen many project managers, many project fails due to the client pressure that they want to go live within certain date. So they just say that we want the product by this date. But it is always better to know that how deep the work will be. Even though having technical experts doesn't guarantee the execution, because it's not, we need to understand the complexities of the software system, the business logic. So it takes certain time. So if we are going to deliver within 2 3 months, which are going to take 6 months, 7 months, then we need understand that it has to be planned properly. And we need, as a project manager, we need to understand the team can expand. Certain times there are in most of the projects in the service industry, for the software project, the project managers put more resources while execution, they take more resources, and then afterwards definitely in the closure or the next support stage, the resources of the team size get reduced. So this is how it is done. Then comes plan reviews. More a technique than a tool, plan reviews help you to keep your plan alive. A plan review is a short meeting. It should not take more than 30 minutes in which you review the project plan within a group of people. I always do it because it's very important that your plan, because 1 week before you have made a plan, but it should be in current situation. Certain times it needs replanning, and most of the time in practical scenario it takes that much of pre-planning. If your customer itself is not clear of the requirement, or the clients have got new requirements, then the plan keeps on changing. So you can review the plan with a group of people, and I recommend that you conduct separate plan reviews for different group of people. For example, your project team will have different interest from the project's keys holder and from the project board. It is humanly possible that project teams will be definitely looking the whole project on the technical point of view. Yeah, these are the screens, this is what I need to deliver. But when it comes to the stakeholder, they have the overall perspective of the project. They want to make it live to the end user for certain dates. So when we review the plan, it has to be a different meeting. You can't have your stakeholders meeting and stakeholders and team members meeting. This is, I'm talking about the SDLC, if your project is following the traditional approach. A plan review consists of taking people through the plan at a high level and only going into detail that's relevant to them, because at the end the meeting has to be effective. Your key stakeholders, for instance, may predominantly be interested to know when you will want their involvement. I have seen in most of my clients will have a different experience, that some of the clients are so interested to collaborate that they keep on asking, so when you want our in, they want to see the screen. So certain, it all depends on which project you are working on, or on which project you are going to deliver, because certain projects are very highly business critical for the client. So definitely they want to be involved from the requirement stage itself. So all these things also matter, that how visible that project is in the client's organization. So without plan reviews, confusion may arise about when the teams is working on and how the project's progressing. So we need to take advantage of these meetings to clear up the confusion and also building client relationship. I want you to do an exercise that you just jot down a point. You need to analyze that if you are using WBS, then is it aligned with your scope? Then is the WBS you're using, the all the task deliverables are practical and it is measurable and achievable? Then when you go back to your these exercise, you just see the gancha using and how effective it is and how you're representing it for your client. Then definitely I want to just analyze that you review your planning meetings with the customer and how it is going. In some projects it might be in the red condition, so client is not happy with the planning. They are not sometimes happy with the resources, or the sometimes they are not happy with the timelines. So whatever the case is, when the customer is unhappy, because always definitely the customer will demand more. So but you need to fit in, because as a project manager you need to liaise with the customer, you need to liaise with the team members. So for that, the best part is like you have a separate meeting with the customer, get their requirements, get their expectations, and just align them that this much can you can only achieve, because certain times the client might be expecting more. Then you align the team members and get things going. This is how it works. So I'm definitely I'm sure that you might be doing risk management plan and all these things. Just go through the recordings once more and see how you connect to it to your project. When we talk about expert project management, again, I'm just reiterating this phase. This is just not only to make plans. Definitely, this planning is one critical point of a project manager. With the current scenario, when you go take any companies like Deloitte or Accenture, what are the big companies, they require the project managers to handle any kind of project, and they require delivery leaders who can motivate the team and to achieve the most and serve the clients as consultant. So yes, the planning and the tools, usage of tools is one part of it, but there is the next part. We see that how to motivate your team, because at the end, one part is the technicality of it, you are planning and estimating, that is one part. But at the end, when it comes to execution, you're dealing with the people. When it comes to the client management, you're dealing with the people. They are different people with different expectation. So here a lot of theory will help you. You want to become an expert project manager, then you definitely need to be expert in all the field on people management, on how to become a leader, how to motivate, how to have goal for your career advancement and also for your team. And next part comes in is the execution excellence, because yes, we have done a planning, but the main project success is mainly dependent on how you execute it. Because if you compromise on quality while execution, or if your team doesn't deliver, then the project will fail. So we'll see all these things. So let's go to the next slide. I want to understand, have you ever failed to achieve the timelines of your project? Just analyze this question. And if you go through my previous recordings, where about the estimation. So when it comes to the timelines and estimation, because when we have estimation, then with the resources we have, then we will give the timelines, the schedule of your project. So I want you to analyze why you have failed. That could be various reasons. One, definitely the resources are not skilled or they are not able to perform, the performance is low. Third could be the technical reasons, internal reasons, external reasons. The team does not liaise with the customer taking the requirements properly, and the project the timelines have not been achieved. And or it could be another reasons that the client has put your project on hold or on the back burner, so that they are not giving you requirement on time. So in this cases also, the timelines of your project is not achieved. Certain times it could be the technical reason, that we are not understanding certain technical issues of the project, so that the timelines are not achieved. So there could be n number of reasons. As a project manager, it is very important as an expert project manager that there should be a proactive approach then to be reactive. Proactive approach in the sense that you need to understand the issues and then provide solution to the client, instead of after the issue has occurred then providing solution. In today's environment, it's not going to be sufficient. So just analyze what are the failures, why the project has failed on achieving the timelines. So when we talk about dealing with deadlines, so I'm sure, especially in IT project, the customer always give a very short bandwidth of time. So then they want certain projects to be rolled out in 2 months, 3 months. The timelines are very, very strict. So dealing with deadlines and technically providing a solution and managing the team could be very difficult for the project managers on those bases. Ideally, you will work out how long on projects going to take, having gathered estimates. That is on, usually we say that we have to gather requirement and then estimate. But in real time scenario, some many a times client gives you the deadline. So it is ideally you will work out how a project's going to take, having gathered estimates, added contingency and considered the risk. Then define the schedule and derive the estimated project deadline. The sad reality is that often projects don't work out in that sense. If this is the case, management is very easy. The client gives you the requirement, you estimate, it is easily executed and delivered. But many a cases, it is not the case. We have all been in a situation where we are given a project after senior management has announced it that it will be on certain date. and it could be within 2 months, and next big thing. So certain times you are given a project which is highly visible to the organization, that is very business critical to the customer, and it has to be given in 2 3 months. And whether the team was there not there, you have to build the team. Certain case you have to build the team from the scratch. So these things happen. So whenever such cases happen, when you get such kind of project, then how you deal as a project manager? As a project manager, you are very likely to have to deal with this kind of situation. You will find yourself in the midst of a project for which no planning has been done, but a final deadline has already been set. Not only that, but the assumption is that you can deliver it with the deadline. For example, I can give you my personal experience that I was a very new to the project management field. Then I have immediately given a project which was highly visible to the organization because it was having good revenue. So in that project, when I just entered the project, the client told, this is the new project we want to build and you have to give me this project. The last deliverable should be within 2 months. And it was very huge task for me because the team has to be built, and then we were not having, the team was also not having that much experience because at that time I was not getting resources. So you have to deal with these situations where it is dealing with the deadlines. Then first and foremost thing you do it, like you have to analyze your strengths. SWOT analysis has to be done, and you need to understand that what is the requirement of the project, and know the assumption and constraint, and build a team which are with a mixture of technical experts and functional experts so that the project can run smoothly. So utmost important for dealing with deadline is emotional stability of the team. So you need to make processes in such a way that, or build a team in such a way that they can help each other out, and you have to plan the task in task deliveries in parallel so that we can achieve the target deadline. So whenever we talk about emotional stability of the team, it is about enhancing the teamwork and motivating the team and assigning the task properly. So if you don't assign tasks properly, definitely the team won't be able to deliver it, and the project end date can't be achieved. So if you're in a wonderful, usually ideally the all, I will be blessed to be in that situation, that where we imagine that we will have a wonderful team, we will have a supportive team, and we can just deliver this project on the date which client has given us. But ideally it never happens because you have to build team, and there are various stages that a team goes through. When it is a new team, just they don't gel with each other in one shot and start working. So there are various efforts that project managers has to put in. Then definitely whenever the deadline is given by the customer, the project managers lose focus on quality. So it should not happen, because whatever the stage we are in, we should be committed to give utmost quality to the customer. So when we talk about the deadlines, it's the main thing that we need to understand is that whenever the client has given you a deadline, it is better to plan it very well, to set out the clear deliverables and have high amount of teamwork and motivate the team to deliver the product. Certain times, due to the deadline, due to certain team members can't take the pressure, it is the duty of the project manager to motivate the team and get things done. So whenever we have a time constraint, it's very important to have team motivation high, and all these things we'll see in the later sessions, wherein I'll talk about teamwork, team building, and how to create a effectively highly productive team, and so that it is all is aligned, they are aligned towards the project goal.